The only thing worse for me than playing one of these Famicom baseball games is playing a bad Famicom baseball game. And Baseball Fighter is just awful. It is a sequel to Super Real Baseball 88, which I'm going to assume that you don't remember because there's 50 baseball games on the Famicom, and they all really blur together. Super Real Baseball was dreadful, and I assume that they waited 3 years to release a sequel in the hopes that people would have forgotten it. I will give Baseball Fighter this. It is marginally better than Super Real Baseball. The sound no longer makes me want to stick an ice pick in my ear, and there is one new mechanic that works decently. The thing that makes Baseball Fighter stand out from other baseball games is the pitching system. You don't push up or down to adjust the speed of your pitch. Instead, you hold down A to start your windup and release when the indicator is at the height you want. Going right in the middle height seems to be the fastest compared to pitching high or low, but it's also the easiest to hit. Batters have to press up or down to aim their own swings. And overall, the system works decently. Of course, against AI opponents, they're going to play better than you, but it makes for a nice variation compared to everyone else copying Family Stadium. Okay, now that I'm done being kind, everything else in Baseball Fighter is a disaster. The perspective on the field means you never know when you're over a ball, and since you have to hit the A button to catch a ball or pick it up, it makes fielding virtually impossible. Maybe, with a ton of practice, you could get used to the viewpoint and learn where you can interact with the ball. But it is not going to be worth it. Making things worse there, running around the field feels very stiff. It takes a lot of effort to get that ball. But don't worry, they took care of that with the AI. It rarely attempts to run a second base. So the fielding's awful, but the AI is programmed to not take advantage of the fact that it is awful. But there's more problems than this. Every at-bat interrupts the flow of the game by presenting the player's stats that you have to clear, and then they're standing at the plate with the bat held in an odd position. You have to swing to clear it. And stealing bases is weirdly overpowered because you can finish stealing the next base before the pitcher has thrown the ball. And I noticed quirks like how the AI can control players individually while you have to control them en masse. And when you're playing one game against the computer, you control what their starting lineup is and who their initial pitcher is. Besides the usual option to just play one game, there's also a full season mode, if you could stand 130 games of this, and a pennant race mode. The big selling point of Baseball Fighter was an edit mode where you could put yourself in the game as a player, but apparently there's nothing that makes you stand out like this, so it winds up being kind of pointless. The most interesting thing in Baseball Fighter is the contest mode. Now, as far as I can tell, there was never an official contest. The manual just mentions the possibility of receiving merchandise. But this contest mode ranks among one of the most unusual features I've ever seen in a Famicom game. If you go to contest mode, and then complete the pennant race or play out an entire season, then you go to a special screen. And what you're supposed to do is call a number in the manual, give a bit of personal information to the operator, and then you'd turn up the volume on your television, hold the phone receiver up to the speaker, and hit a button on the Famicom controller. The Famicom would then act as a kind of basic acoustic modem, playing tones that would be interpreted by a computer on the other end of the phone line, which would then record your achievements. I couldn't find anybody mentioning having actually done it, and given the poor quality of Baseball Fighter, I kind of doubt that many people did. Unsurprisingly, this game is not well regarded in Japan. The few people who do mention it point it out as one of the worst sports games on the Famicom. And the good news here is that this is the end of VAP's attempts to make baseball games. So there's no Baseball Fighter 92 or even Super Baseball Fighter. This is so bad, they gave up on baseball altogether. And to that I say, good riddance.